really nervous and busy. But all glory be to God. I've all got a story to tell, you know, so I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the grace of God. I just want to start by saying I've been coming in on 2 years. I've had a great welcome off you guys. And it's a privilege to be here now to glorify God and everything He's done in my life. So, I just want to go into a little bit of a story that in the height of my career when I was a drug dealer and a criminal. And it was crazy days, just crazy days. And I remember I had to go out on my motorbike and I had to go and stash some drugs and that over the dunes. And as I came out of the estate to go down to the dunes, there was a street cop waiting. I don't know whether he was waiting on purpose or he was just there. But he blue lighted me and he gave chase and he chased me through the streets. It was like middle of winter, it was like January or February. And I went down onto the dunes. So he lost me, and that's all I could do was a helicopter. It was like a real thick overcast, so I couldn't see him, but I could hear him. So I was panicking now, and I was, you know, the things that I was up to would probably cost, I would have cost 10 or 15 years at least. You know, the amount of drugs I was dealing, and you know, so I'm sure they had surveillance on me at some point around that time. And so all these thoughts were going through my mind, and I went down towards Kentrick Pool there, and I was racing around, and I was sweating. I hadn't slept for 3 days. I was really paranoid. I was suffering from amphetamine psychosis. And I was going through all these thoughts in my mind, thinking, you know, they got me, you know, I'm going to be in jail for a long time, and all the things that come with paranoia. So I was racing around this pool, and I thought the only way I'm going to get rid of this chopper is drive into the water. It was like January, it was freezing cold. Just hitting the water on impact, I thought I was going to die. And I just laid the bike down, and in the end I could hear the chopper had gone. It was freezing, I must have been there an hour, and I thought, if I don't get out of the I'm going to die. So, and I did, I got up there, stripped my outer clothes on, and I went and I walked up to the top. I called a mate to come and pick me up. You know, I could have died there that day. But it wasn't always like that. If we go back down to my childhood, where, you know, growing up, you know, in a normal home, my mother and father, my father worked, my mother was a housewife, looked after 3 boys. 2 seconds, guys. And then, after a few years, things started to go on in the family where problems and the marriage started to struggle and, you know, and break down. And then the 3 of us started to rebel. My older brother and my younger brother got in trouble with the police. I was a little bit more craftier, you know, I got away with it a little bit more. Up until I was at a later age, when I was 15, I ended up in court for beating up a school bus driver. But I just rebelled against things. My mother remarried, and in that remarriage, everything was cool at the start. But then my stepfather started to meddle with drugs, and then, you know, then people started to come back before the house, and then he started dealing drugs. And dealing drugs, then, you know, the motorbikes and the cars and the drug dealers used to come back and forth. And so my role models were drug dealers. So instead of being policemen, firemen, nurses, doctors, and all these guys where you're supposed to be looking up to, my role models were drug dealers. So I thought, you know, as I was going through school, I didn't want to be anything else. So I thought, again, in the beginning, all my aspirations wanted to be somebody. But then it started to change as I started smoking weed and looking at this criminal life. You know what I mean? It's paying them money, you can pay me money. So I can make a lifestyle of it. So by the time I was 15, 16, I was already out in the streets doing things, not drugs. Well, I was taking drugs, but not selling drugs at that point. I started my criminal life. There was a gang of guys, and I used to steal cars. And then I approached them and said, I tell them, guys, you do this, and you drive a car, and you go straight through the window, and then you bring the stuff to me, and I'll sell it for you, and you know, this is what we've done. So that was the start of my criminal career, really, and then selling other things. But it went from there to drug dealing. Now, by the time I was 19, what started off small became quite large. And it started to control my life. But it's not really, when I look back, when I was in the first civil comp, second comp, when I had aspirations, now 19, 20 years old, being a drug dealer. And what comes with that then, here comes the power, and you know, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you're out there, and you know, somebody owes you money, and you deal with it violently, and you know, this is what I was kind of getting wrapped up into. Always trying to make a name for myself. When I look back at myself now, I can kick myself. But I can't change that now. You know, all my shame is in Christ. I make that point right now. So then, you know, in that lifestyle, I suppose you get into a lot of different things, you know, where I was just powered by, even driven by evil. I remember, I don't know if you know Neil Harvey, he's spoke here a few times, and he was one of my drug brothers at the time, and a friend of mine called Gareth, and me and Neil were driving down the road, and there was this guy, he owed me money for quite some time, and he'd done a runner, and as me and Neil come to the junction, I looked like that, and Neil didn't really know what was going on, and as I looked across like that, there was a guy with a helmet on the motorbike with a scarf there, and I just spotted him, and just that second of rage, I just floored it and run him over in the car. It was middle of day, in broad daylight, and there was people everywhere, and they were all shopping, and Neil is hanging on, you know, he hadn't got a clue what's going on, and I just run over this guy, and if he weren't for the handlebars, keeping the car off the bike, he would have been dead, and I had been doing life. Just that second of rage could have changed my life and his forever. And these are the things that I used to get up to, taking people against their will because they owe me money and torture them for hours, you know, until they give up the money, you know. And these are the things I should have been in jail a long time, for a long time, the things I've done. And, you know, so anyway, this obviously led me to prison, being violent and being out on the street. And I ended up in a nightclub one night, and it ended up in a fight, and it just led me to a jail cell. And in jail, it was, to be honest with you, it really done me a favour, because when I look back now, I had all that time to think, to reminisce of where am I going with my life, what's happening to me. I hadn't been this clear in my mind since I was like 12-year-old, you know, so I had time where there was no drugs involved, no crime involved, no having to run around and make money and try to prove myself. I was just there, in a cell. And when I look back now, I can see God poking me and stoking me, and he sent this little chaplain woman, and she was one of the chaplains in the prison there in Cardiff, Nick, and she would knock my door, she would come to church, she wouldn't leave me alone. And in the end, I give in, and I said, come on in, I come with. It was like an informal church where they all sat around together, and they talk about Jesus, and you know, I really enjoyed it. But like, prison isn't the most hygienic places. And it was the smell of the boys' socks that put me off. And I thought, you know what, I'll just stay in the cell. So anyway, so I got on a train, and then, you know, and my drug career it kind of reached its height. But then I started bothering with a couple of guys from Liverpool, and then it just went to a whole new level. And I was making a lot of money. Obviously, the violence and everything else kind of grew with that. And from like Porthcawl, Canary, Bridgend, and that area grew to a larger area. And in that, where me, Neil, and a friend of mine called Gareth, we was always together, and you know, I don't think I ever knew a day that we was apart, really. And Gareth, he was only 24 years old. He was a young lad. I loved him like a brother, and I know he loved me like a brother. All right, guys? Okay. And then one day that Gareth, he put a rope around his neck and took his own life, and it absolutely destroyed me. I felt nothing but guilt and shame that I'd led this lad, you know, in all the wrong ways, and it really done something to me. And I went into a bit of a darkness and depression, but I went chaotic as well, and I just held a control. But Neil found Christ. Neil found Christ, you know, from a drug runner, and now he stands up here and, you know, he speaks about Jesus. And he found Jesus, and he kind of talked to me about this Jesus guy. You know, now I knew who Jesus kind of was, but I didn't know I could have a personal relationship with him. And he came to talk to me about Jesus. And I thought, man, first of all, I thought, wow, you've gone nuts, mate. but then, the more and more he talked to me about Jesus, the more and more sense it made. He came with this anointing, with this presence that I didn't recognize. This light that was inside him. It says in the word of the Lord, it says, the face of the Lord will shine upon you, and the glory of God will shine on all men. So he brought this presence with him, and I was in such darkness. It was in a really bad place. So he would go off to Bible college and different things. Every time he'd come back, he'd talk to me about Jesus. Now, in this through this time, my daughter Crystal, well, in fact, she wasn't born at that time, but my wife fell pregnant. And this is how God works and how faithful he was to me, even though before I even knew him. And my wife fell pregnant and she had some real issues going on there, and the child wasn't growing in the bag, and the water was it wasn't holding, and the doctor said, listen, you know, you're going to give birth to a dead child. You know, at the very, very best, your child is going to be Down syndrome or severely handicapped. This is a massive deal to us, obviously. I was grieving, I was locked myself in away grief. You know, I didn't want to show my family that I was suffering through Gareth, and now all this on top. And I had a dream, and how God used Gareth in my dream. It was God, it was nothing to do with Gareth. But Gareth came to me and he said, whatever you do, you could have done to him as a child. And I woke Kath up, and it happened twice. So I woke Kath up, I said, listen, I've had this dream. I said, I'm really, and that's faith, guys. You know, I didn't even know God, but God instilled something in me, so I could believe in something. And she was born 26 weeks, 2 pound 1 bone. I couldn't touch her for 3.5 months, she was an incubator. But she sings now downstairs in Soul Point, and she's 16 years old, and she's a beautiful girl. Praise God for that. In all this darkness and all this chaos, that's all I wanted to be, was a good dad. I just wanted to be there for my children, and it was just like I had no control over it, and because it just ruled me, it run me. Because I suppose in a way, I was left when I was young with people around me, drug dealing, different things, and I was just left to run wild. So then, let's get back to Neil now. So Neil is talking to me about Jesus, and he's travelling off, and he's going back and forth, and he's kind of telling me about Jesus. But there's a guy called Simon Evans, he's in here somewhere over there. Well, this guy haunted me. He absolutely haunted me. Neil led into the Lord about a year before me, and he was a pain, let me tell you. He wouldn't let me go. But he came bearing gifts, and he came with a big box of videotapes, and he knocked the door. He started to forge a relationship, and I'm glad he never left me alone, because I tell you, I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for him, and the perseverance that he, you know, because at the end of the day, my life was chaotic, very violent, never knew what I was going to do, and he stuck it out, and he used to tell me about Jesus, and in the end he said, come on, come to church, and I wouldn't go to church at first, because of pride. The pride had me, but in the end, I can't tell you why I go to church. First going to church, I walked down, I was in back the tabernacle, and as I was going down, I seen them all in there through the window, and they were all there praising Jesus. I thought, man, and I'm the one with problems. Well, but I went in, I sat in the corner, and I kind of I went through the songs, and Pastor Roy was speaking at the time, and he was speaking, and he was just like a fiery arrow penetrating my heart. Boom, it was affecting me. And I went from there, and then week after week after week, and in fact, and I just gave my life to Christ. I thought, God, I'm all yours. You know what I mean? I've made a mess of things, man. I've blown everything that I've done. I said, so if you're real, take me on that journey. And he started straight away, and he started to change my life. He started provisions. Like, obviously, so I was a drug dealer, that's all I've ever known. It never worked. You know, the only job I ever done was being a pharmaceutical rep. I think that's not going to really stand now. I can't really do that anymore. So then, what am I going to do? Christmas is coming. I was worried about Christmas. I didn't have a fiver in my pocket. So I thought, I tell you what, this is what I'll do. I thought, I'll go and get a kilo of amphetamine, I'll sell it quickly. You know, God will forgive me, I'll repent of it later. And I'll just make enough money for Christmas. See the devil coming in trying to deceive me. But God had bigger plans. My wife came upstairs one day just before Christmas. She said, look at this, with an envelope. To Margot, Kathleen and children, with love from Jesus. It was a word, 500 quid in there, and it just seemed to be fine. Now that was the provision of God. You know, he knew my needs, he put it on somebody's heart to come and do that, and you know, and see me through that time. So anyway, so not having any money, I want to kind of highlight this here, because this woman is a special woman to me. And having to kind of, not having a fiver in my pocket, I phoned all these drug dealers up. I said, listen, you know, keep the money, I don't want the money. And then this one woman, where I used to have all her credentials, and I used to send the drugs up, and she used to put money in a bank, and I'd take it out the other end. Well, I took all those credentials up one day, and I stood before her, and I said, listen, I don't want it, you keep the money, I don't want it. Well, what's happening? You know, where's the gear? I need to sell some gear, you know, I need money. She said, man, I found Jesus. And she just broke down, she just started crying there in front of me. So a couple of weeks later, man, she came to Christ. And she still goes to church now, week in and week out. And she's got a real special relationship with Jesus. You know what I mean? And whether it was that, you know, or triggered it, but at the end of the day, the Holy Spirit took over and led her down a different route. And now she lives her life, she goes to work. You know, she's a great girl. And so, then from there I went on to Solid Rock Youth Centre. And where, you know, I worked as a youth worker, a Christian youth worker, you know, where I was kind of involved with, you know, broken lives, coming in off the street, and seeing many young people come to Christ. You know, a fantastic ministry that was, which is closed now. Then went from there, then Simon started a meeting in Morelli called the Sandwich Meeting, which later became Change Your Lives, where I was kind of heading that up, where I would go down the street and I would talk to people about Jesus, where I would reach out to people with drug issues, drug dealers. You'd be surprised how many drug dealers actually come out to me and ask me to pray for them. Right. You know, although they're not Christians right now, but they're on their journey. You know, there's a guy, he pulled up in his Porsche. I said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to church. He said, oh, do you know what, you couldn't pray for me, he said, I'm really struggling with a bad heart and all that. He said, can you just pray for me? You know, be surprised that people, even in their need, no matter how far away they are from God, they always come to that place where, you know, they need God. They know they need God. So I'm a grandfather now as well, and you know, I work on a homeless project in Bridgend. I started off in Cardiff, over to Bridgend, where, you know, now I can just give back. I can enjoy being in work. I can, you know, I get opportunities where I can share the gospel. I got to do it low key because I'm not there for that. You know what I mean? I've already been put in the office once, but you know, it's either God or work. You know, it's God every time, every single time. So I just want to finish with this, guys. Last week I was spending time with God, and you know, He just led me to Proverbs 3:21. He said, "Do not envy a violent man, or choose any of his ways, for the Lord detests a perverse man, but takes the upright into his confidence." That really spoke to me when I first became a Christian, because it was me, a Catholic, who was there and reading the Bible, and the pages kept on falling on me, and I looked like that, and it led me here. And it's like, because I was worrying at the time, what would people think of me? You know what I mean? When I was down on the street and I was doing different things, and then now being a sissy Christian, you know, and this is the mentality that you have, you know, when you're non-Christian. Going to church is sissy, but it's not, man. It's real. Yeah. It's real, and God loves us, guys. And you know, we've got a duty to go out and share it to this dark and depraved world, that the love of God is real, and He loves us. He died on the cross for us. Okay, guys, thanks for listening.